Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Joshua. And apparently, Assassin is the canon class for his promotion. Here's where we are, folks. Let's talk about Josh, let's talk about this banner, and whether this unit is worth your time or even thoughts, assuming you haven't pulled yet. But even so, you can use this in the future.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up, guys? Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video, as you no doubt can tell, is a Joshua analysis and a subtle should you pull on this banner featuring Josh and a few other Sacred Stones units, basically featuring Disarm Trap and I guess Namie, but Namie's not really that worth talking about. So this video is going to focus on Josh. It's going to focus on whether he's useful. Can he live up to the hype that is Yuri? Well, I'm going to try to debunk that in this particular video. Now, before I actually talk about Joshua, I want to share something else in this video, just as a little bit of an intro, as I always do in most of these videos, and that is literally my Sacred Stones playthrough that I'm literally doing right now on Twitch. And the timing on this is spectacular because I haven't played this game in like over 10 years, so I think it's extremely fitting that I'm literally revisiting it just as this banner got released. So yeah, I do play fat on Twitch. My AR games, I actually play single games at the highest tiers, plus Arena. But after that, when there's some extra time, we actually trying to fit in some more Fire Emblem gameplay, and right now that's Sacred Stones. So of course I just wanted to share that with you guys here on YouTube and see I am using Josh, as you can see, and I am a Namie fan. I love archers, even if they suck. I know they objectively suck in Fire Emblem, but I am an archer sucker, so that is what that is. And Boulder is not in the game yet, so yeah, so that's it. And if you guys actually want to see my stats, here's the second one as well. I seem to have a very blessed Erica in this playthrough, but yeah, if you haven't played something like Sacred Stones, it's actually quite an easy game, Fire Emblem, to get into, so probably recommend that one, among with some other ones. So yeah, pretty exciting. Yeah, that's basically what I'm going to talk about, just to share with you guys. Feel free to join on Twitch, but also because, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, applying practical knowledge to a lot of the theory in some of my videos is really important for you guys to actually level up your game. And I highly suggest not only maybe enjoying some of this content with me, but actually understanding why someone like Joshua could or could not potentially be a unit, as we see him likely on something like AR Defense, or have long-winded discussions about why he's either a good or bad unit that is applicable to post, this discussion, or have a back and forth. So that's important because the comments is only so much I can do here. You can always tell me, of course, in the comments. But anyways, smash the like button and sub. I always ask because it really does help, and it shows me that you guys care about these videos. All right, let's talk Josh. So Josh is, of course, high attack, high speed. There's not really too much of an interest in that particular thing here. What is interesting is his weapon and the fact that he kind of comes with a kit that's already kind of ready to go. There are some things I would recommend changing or different ways of using him, and that's definitely what I will cover in this particular video. And the first thing we should consider, of course, is his weapon. And I did kind of talk about this in the impressions video, so you can go watch that if you want to, especially if you want my opinion on Namie, Coleman, and Rennek, because they're not really going to be mentioned here. The blade itself is basically a slaying weapon. It's got a neutralizing speed and defense, so it increases his damage and makes him pretty much faster than others. And then he has this really new type of condition that I think is worth mentioning and understanding in this video. So what I've done is I put together this really amazing graphic over there on the left, and if you don't understand what that means, basically the red X's, if you position Josh to attack from those red X's into that knot, he's going to do a true damage. And the green ones, kind of like the same color as Wind Sweep, he's going to prevent counterattacks. So it's an either or type of condition, and we don't really have these on any other unit, I think. So it is kind of cool to think about this, because you can actually use this a lot to your advantage for many different reasons. A couple of reasons why this would be good sometimes you don't actually want to straight up deny a counterattack, like you actually want to take retaliation, and retaliation damage, like let's say on distant counter not, could bring Josh to 50% health or lower, and then enable Wings of Mercy plays. Another one is he may not just kill, or he may not survive, and therefore you can enable him to instead do a sort of wind sweep effect. And this kind of flexibility on Josh is actually really cool, and I think actually can make him stand out compared to a lot of other units, because this gives you flexibility in how you want to approach a situation. Do you take a counterattack? Do you get low HP? Or do you do some sort of wind sweep effect, into an armor, and then they can't retaliate? So that type of flexibility is really nice, among with the true damage, of course, which actually helps with killing, and a couple other reasons. One thing I want to point out though, if you're looking at the graphic, it's actually easier to do the true damage effect, if you ask me, than it is to do the wind sweep effect. On positioning reasons, you're going to have more areas to hit from to do the true damage effect than you would with a wind sweep effect, because usually you're going to have like a line of foes as opposed to, like clump or something. So you're going to have more options for attacking from the diagonals as opposed to attacking from the cardinals. So keep that in mind. It is a very interesting mechanic, and I hope they do incorporate it into different units as well. Joshua was definitely the first to show this. Now, before you start getting all hype and suspect that I think this is a reason to pull him, realistically, it pretty much isn't. He's really cool, he's definitely flexible, and I think he's viable and pretty good of a unit, but this isn't a reason to pull him necessarily, because you probably, if you've been playing enough, at the higher tiers, you'll know that this isn't necessarily some like must-have unit who's going to absolutely crush the metagame right now. It's not the case. It's just a really cool thing I wanted to share, and hopefully get you guys thinking about how to use this weapon and why it could be potentially good. This does actually make him more flexible than someone like Yuri in a way, because Yuri can't really avoid counterattacks if both of them are using disarm trap, and that can be pretty good, among with the fact that Joshua has true damage and Yuri doesn't, so Joshua should be getting kills better. However, the big advantage Yuri has, of course, is high mobility in the form of 3 movement and Canto. So that is a pretty big difference, and that is where the give or take is between those two units, and I will compare them because they're both recent dagger releases. Nonetheless, I do think Joshua has a place, and if you want to be a Joshua user, don't feel ashamed to actually use him. He's quite good. One other thing I want to mention before I jump into some of the builds is that this 25% HP condition can actually be relevant if you're using Fury recoil builds, meaning, or you take counterattacks from someone like Not. What this means is if you actually go, and you probably will, go under 25% HP, you're actually not going to benefit from that effect, these effects at all, actually. So be very mindful, be very careful of that. Maybe the second effect is still on if he's under 25%. I can't really make it out right now. You can clarify that in the comments for me. But what I'm saying is be careful with recoil and retaliation damage, as it is actually relevant in these type of playstyles where you want to set up other units. However, as I said, Josh is interesting, useful, but he's not necessarily a must pull, and you can always wait for a future legendary mythic banner, a Twitter vote rerun, or he just shares with someone else and you just end up picking him up, some like pity break or whatnot. He's not necessarily worth it for the Floret. Florets aren't must-haves, and he's not necessarily worth it as some game-breaking meta unit. He's definitely a very flexible and useful unit. So that's pretty much my take on this, and let's move on to some of the builds, as we'll see here in a moment. So first up, what I'm going to talk about is the actually, I guess I'll keep the graphic up there just to help you guys just understand it if you forgot. So one of the cool things you can do, of course, is run him in Arena, and that flexibility, again, really helps a lot, because he just straight up can either choose to wind sweep, or he can choose to do true damage. And because of that, you don't need to run something like wind sweep. You can just actually keep his base kit and kill a lot of stuff. He is a good user of lethality, but you don't necessarily need to use that. You could actually just use Ruptured Sky instead, or even Aether. They're both going to be pretty okay. It doesn't really matter. What really makes Joshua stand out, of course, is that true damage versus wind sweep capability. Keep in mind, he's still going to be pretty weak to Ascended Fjorm, but, I mean, so is Yuri at the end of the day. They would have to run some sort of AoE builds to get around that sort of thing, but yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool unit. Let's actually move on to some AR builds as well. So, okay, so next up here, I wanted to share with you guys some AR builds as well, where you can take advantage of his Blade of Johanna. So first of all, in these builds, I'm not showcasing any of the Ascended boons, which are obviously free. Depending on how things work out, I always recommend, if you already have the attack boon or the speed boon, that you should just upgrade the other one respectively. So let's say if you already have speed, then just upgrade attack. Now, if you don't have, let's say, a speed or attack boon, so if you had something like a defense boon or a res boon or an HP boon, then you should follow the builds more closely, where you end up with like HP and attack, or you end up with defense and attack or whatever. Or in the last build here, then res and speed, for example. You can always use trade fruits, but trade fruits are not that common enough where I would highly recommend changing that around. Maybe the Bane on HP could be pretty useful for stuff like the recoil builds, but again, keep in mind the 25% HP condition. One thing you'll notice really quickly is if you do use him in air offense, I think he does demand the disarm trap more than pretty much any other dagger unit. Now, disarm trap is crucial to good engagements, but it's even more important for Joshua, if you ask me, because he has a positioning kind of clause. You really want to make sure you attack from the angle that is most beneficial to you. And if you choose not to run disarm trap, you limit your options and therefore take away one of his greatest strengths. So yes, disarm trap is on this banner, or hopefully you have someone like Laroom lying around, or Spring Pala, I guess, or you have enough codes to pick up Spring Pala. But I do think if you're going to use him, he does demand disarm trap more than any other dagger unit, and other dagger units also want it, but he wants it even more because of his positional shenanigans. Now, as an enabler, again, he's going to be pretty good because he can choose to either win sweep or he can choose to do true damage. That flexibility is really nice, and he's going to get into positions that should set up your other units pretty well. The recoil damage, of course, with Fury Seal is amazing. It makes it so you could engage on pretty much 2 combats depending on how many mythics are blessing him, and you'll set up Wings of Mercy pretty easily. You can also just take recoil damage because with Fury, you're going to have a lot of bulk, so a lot of frontliners like Not won't actually one-shot him, and you'll just end up getting Wings of Mercy pretty much that way. Another really good build that you probably should consider is, of course, the AoE build, running his weapon, running Times Pulse, and ideally some sort of acceleration like Valoria, Raphael, or just Infantry Pulse all work to really take down stuff like Ascended Fjorm. Because unfortunately, his wind sweep effect doesn't really do anything against Ascended Fjorm, so if you end up with a team that's far saved with Ascended Fjorm, then you can run an AoE on him, and that's going to work out pretty well because, of course, Fjorm is weak to AoEs as long as you aim that AoE properly to hit her. So, again, both should work pretty well. As I mentioned, there is a big difference between him and Yuri, Yuri being mobility, Kanto, and Josh having flexibility with more damage, and of course the wind sweep effect for stuff that Yuri can't deal with. I know that comparison is really common, but it is something to note. Finally, on air defense, he can work as a lethality nuker. This is actually, I've seen it quite a bit now with a couple of the other dagger users, such as Volk, and I believe Yuri can do it too. Although Kanto's not as good, but generally speaking, what you can accomplish there is if he's on some sort of Bridal Catria team with like a Flashing Blade seal, then he can pretty much charge up his lethality off of 1 brave attack, and that is really powerful because it'll kill most tank units. However, someone like Volk does kind of do this better than Josh, but the thing is the AI can be pretty smart about how they use Josh. Believe it or not, AI will consider the positioning on whether Josh will want to survive or potentially get a kill off of the true damage if that choice is there, which is really cool. Again, an interesting mechanic that is unique to Josh, where the AI is literally going to choose a scenario that's more beneficial to it. As if stuff combined with like Pathfinder or Order skills, it'll open up the door to make him a pretty annoying unit to deal with on defense. He's not a great answer to someone like Ascended Fjorm, but he does definitely challenger if you do run Bridal Catria with lethality. It's still going to require a little bit of setup, like he's going to need more special acceleration because most of them run guard, but effectively he can do it. So yeah, this is pretty much what I think on Josh. He's a pretty solid, like, one-off or +1 unit. You wouldn't even really need to invest into him pretty hard to use him in air offense and defense. You could bring him up to +10 for arena, and he's not the greatest arena investment, but he definitely can work there too. Let's go into some of the thoughts that you guys here in the community think about Josh, and of course we'll share them. Starting with the polls, which are both on YouTube and my Patreon. So as you can see, this banner is not too popular. It's probably one of the lowest, like, all my orbs percentage I've ever seen, and honestly not that many sparking either. Compared to some of the super hit banners we've had in the new year and right before, it seems like either people are out of orbs or just not as interested in this banner as some of the other ones. And that's okay. It's good to have some skips. It's okay to save some orbs. The anniversary is upon us, and probably Hero Rises is also upon us soon. So definitely good to save some orbs. As you see in some of my comments here, You Got Snail says, skip, I made it this far without an ascended hero. I don't need one now. Another form of disarm trap is cool to see, and the option of spark is enticing, which is awesome. For even if you're not a Fed Pass user, that's good. Disarm Trap is in the permanent pool though, so it's not some sort of like you need it right away type of scenario. Definitely patience is key. Next up is a comment by Evan who says, I'll just be doing my free summons because these characters are not desirable to me, but I'm definitely going to not underestimate Ascended Joshua because while he may not be the same power level as Yuri, I recognize he's still quite strong. Another reason I'm only using my free summons is because I'm saving for Pledge and Raphael's rerun later this month. Right. So Evan does bring a good point. I don't want to automatically dismiss Ascended Joshua, as I've tried to cover in this video. I do think he's actually quite strong in his own way, just a different playstyle to Yuri, different advantages. He's definitely solid. In terms of summoner duels though, probably Yuri wins that one. But anyways, next up here is the final comment by Matthew Jenkins, who on YouTube says, going all in because Joshua is my favorite Sacred Stones character, and if I had to come up with a super fantasy dream unit that I would want, it would be this version of Joshua. The art is drop dead gorgeous, and I feel too obligated to summon him. Every part of him is appealing to me. And that's totally cool. There's definitely going to be people who see their favorite characters in their dream outfits or dream scenarios, whether that's Resplendent or this banner, and I of course wanted to share that with you guys because at the end of the day, even though I might recognize the best case scenarios or compare a lot of these units, if this is your favorite character, then you don't even need to watch this video or try to be convinced in one way or another. I'm not here to justify whether you should or should not play this game the way you want to. And Matthew here is clearly going to go for Joshua. Probably already has before this video even dropped. And I hope that his gacha experience wasn't utter hell. So yeah, guys, that basically covers my Joshua and analysis of this banner, or whether it's like he's worth pulling or not. Generally speaking, no, but he's definitely a solid unit. And yeah, that's it from me, folks. Thank you for watching. As always, smash that like button and sub. Again, super appreciated. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
It's over.